precious, wonderful name we pray. Amen. Now back in Revelation chapter 20, we was reading this last week, and we saw many references to 1,000 years. It says in verse 1, "And I saw the angel come down from heaven, having the key to the bottomless pit," and we know that's the abyss, and that there's where God uses this abyss many different times. There's another component of the abyss called Tartarus, and Tartarus is where the fallen angels are at right now. They're the ones who caused the flood, and God said he would reserve them in chains of darkness until they're judged, and there'll be a judgment coming for them one day because they caused the first world to be destroyed. Well, there's going to be another group of angels going to cause the earth to be destroyed again, and the chief of that is the ultimate angel, which is Satan. So, and he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is called the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. So the 1,000-year reference right there is one. And cast him to the bottomless pit, goes back to the abyss again, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him that he should deceive the nations no more till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that he must be loosed for a little season. And like I say, I've looked and looked and looked trying to find out how long that little season is, and I can't find anything. I'm sure it's in there somewhere, just God has not revealed it to me yet. And I saw thrones, and they that sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither received his mark in their forehead or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. But the rest of the dead lived not again till the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. On such a second death hath no power. And we talk about the second death, which is the lake of fire. And they shall be priests of God and Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. Over and over and over, it's telling us about 1,000 years. And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, shall go out and deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. And they went up in the breadth of the earth, and compassed the camp of the saints about and beloved city. And fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. And I talked many different times about 1,000-year reign. But there's a lot of people don't believe in 1,000-year reign. There's different denominations and stuff that believes this is just fictitious, and there's no such thing. Why did God put it in there if there wasn't something about it? There is a 1,000-year reign that the Bible talks about. There's many different scriptures in the Old Testament that talks about a time period that's never been as of yet. A time when lions and lambs can lay down together, or wolves and lambs, I guess it's what it really says is wolves and lambs, lay down together, how children can play with poisonous apes or snakes, and they won't hurt them. And many different things that's never really happened yet here on earth. How the desert blooms as a rose, and how it brings forth the strength, and how the Dead Sea, which right now is nothing but salt, and nothing can live in the Dead Sea. But it says once the water from the throne of God flows into the Dead Sea, it will come forth and bring forth life, and there'll be marine life, and there'll be all kinds of things happen there. These things has never took place yet. There's a time period that's coming that all these things is going to happen. It also talks about how Christ will rule and reign on the throne of David, which is a Davidic, I guess that's how you say it, covenant that he made with David, that one day he would rule and reign on his throne. There's prophecies that was given unto Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that they would possess a land, and the land is like 1,500 miles square. Well, what they have now, that little tiny nation called Israel, is not the land that they was promised. And most of the Arabs and Muslims and different things like that, they want that land for themselves. They don't want Israel to have any land. They want all Israelis to die. And remember, that goes all the way back, and we talked about that. Think a little bit about Ishmael and Isaac, and how Ishmael hates Isaac because he's the son of the promise. And he received all the promises from Abraham. And Ishmael being the firstborn, or so he thinks, but it's not through Sarah, which God said Sarah would bring forth a son. And that's where Isaac came from. So all the Muslims and Arabs and all those people over there is all jealous against Israel. That's why they're trying to destroy Israel, and they don't want Israel to exist. Remember, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, whatever his name is, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, said that Israel needs to be pushed out to the Mediterranean Sea and drowned. And that was what Iran wanted to do when he was in charge, and that's really never changed. He's not really in charge right now, but yet that same theology comes from the Shia Muslims, and they want Israel gone, and the Sunnis do also. So we see here many different times references to 1,000 years. Now let's look at some scriptures that has to do with that 1,000 years. Let's look back over at Daniel. Now I know we talked about a lot of this in Daniel, but maybe we didn't really talk about per se the 1,000-year reign of Christ. So let's go all the way back to Daniel chapter number 2, and we'll start there, and we've got quite a few scriptures in the Old Testament. I'll find Daniel myself. There it is. And let's look at Daniel, chapter number 2, and let's look at verse 25. I'm sure I'm right there on that, yes. Okay, Daniel 2:25. And Arioch brought in Daniel before the king in haste. Remember, the king, Nebuchadnezzar, had a dream, and he couldn't remember the dream. He couldn't remember what all took place in it. He said, I want somebody to tell me my dream and tell me the interpretation thereof. And the soothsayer said, that's impossible. Nobody can tell you what your dream was and then tell you tell us the dream, we'll tell you the interpretation. And I said, I don't remember the dream. Don't remember what took place or anything. But, you know, Daniel says, I can do that. And he says, brought in Daniel before the king in haste and said unto him, I have found a man of the captives of Judah that will make known the king the interpretation. The king answered and said unto Daniel, whose name is Belshazzar, art thou able to make known unto me the dream which I have seen and the interpretation thereof? Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, this secret which the king hath dreamed cannot the wise men and astrologers and magicians and soothsayers show the king. But there is a God in heaven that revealeth secrets, and maketh known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days. Now that's the key right there that opens this up. This is talking about the latter end times, talking about the latter days. The dream and the vision of thy head upon thy bed are these. As for thee, O king, thy thoughts came into thy mind upon thy bed, what should come to pass hereafter. He that revealeth secrets maketh known to thee what shall come to pass. So he's showing him a vision of the future here. His dream is all dealing with future things. But as for me, this secret is not revealed to me for any wisdom that I have more than any living, but for their sakes, and that shall make known the interpretation to the king, and that thou mightest know the thoughts of thy heart. Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. And the image's head was of fine gold, and his breast and his arms of silver, and his belly and thighs of brass. His legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. And remember, we talked about that image, and we talked about what each one of these things is, which he's going to go on. We're going to read this whole thing. But he's going to talk about each one of them being a world kingdom. Thou sawest till the stone, here's another key verse right here, it talks about the 1,000-year reign. Thou sawest till a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, the gold was broken in pieces together, and became like the chaff of summer, the summer threshing floor. And the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. In other words, once they're destroyed, there'll be no place found for them. They won't never come back. They're gone. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. Now those two scriptures right there, 34 and 35, is dealing with the 1,000-year reign of Christ, how he comes and becomes King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And once his kingdom is set up, All other kingdoms is going to be done away with. There won't be no other kingdom, because his will be an everlasting kingdom, and his kingdom will stand forever and ever and ever. Now let's go on. He talks about the interpretation down here. This is a dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou, O king, art the King of kings. For the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. And whosoever the children of men dwell, and the beasts of the field, and the fowls of the heaven, hath given into thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all, thou art this head of gold. So he's talking to Nebuchadnezzar here and the Babylonian Empire, and how it's the supreme world kingdom. Now there was two other world kingdoms before that, because we know that Assyria was a world kingdom, and we know that Egypt was a world kingdom, because Pharaoh, when the time of Moses, that was a world kingdom. Egypt was in charge of everything at that time. And then Assyria was another world kingdom, but then you have Babylon, and the Babylonian Empire is the one that's in control right now at the time of Daniel and the time of this dream, and he's telling the king that he is the head of gold. So it all begins with that kingdom. Egypt and Assyria is not really the parts of this per se. What God has got in store starts with the Babylonian Empire. And after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee, another third kingdom of brass, which shall rule over all the earth. So there's going to be more kingdoms coming after this Babylonian Empire, and we know that to be the Median Persian Empire, which is arms and chests of silver, and then the Grecian Empire, which is brass, and it's the waist. And then after that, there'll be the Roman, and it goes on here in verse 40, and the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces, and to do all things. Now remember, the Roman Empire was the ones that was in control when Jesus came to the earth to die on the cross. They was the ones who placed him on the cross. Remember, Pilate had washed his hands and says, you know, I can't find anything wrong with this man, but if you want him crucified, hey, that's what you'll get. We'll crucify him. Just know that I'm washing my hands of this whole thing, because I think he's innocent. But because you want him crucified, you say there's no king but Caesar, and you're saying that you want him crucified and you want Barabbas released, then we're going to scourge him, and we're going to put him on a cross, and we're going to have him killed. And that's what they did. They put him on the cross, and they did all the manners of evil that mankind can come up with against the very Son of God. And he suffered hell upon the scourgings and all the things that he did as a punishment for sin. And it was our sins that put him there, because he was totally innocent of sin. But he paid that price, and he became our propitiation. He became the sacrifice that we bring before God for the punishment of sin. And that sacrifice is a worthy sacrifice. And that's what Brother Roy's been teaching on so wonderfully, what Jesus has really done on the cross and what that means to us. And how that through him we have forgiveness of all sins, past, present, and future. And he goes on and says, and the iron that breaketh all these shall break in pieces and bruise. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of the potter's clay and part of iron, and the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it the strength of iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. And many scholars and different ones that has commentaries and stuff is talking about how this is democracy and communism. The communism being the iron. It's, you know, there's so much communism that's still in the earth, and there's democracy also, and that's the clay, which can go either way, and that's, you know, it's flexible and pliable. And as the toes and feet were part of iron and part of clay, and that there's the world we live in today, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, and they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron and is not mixed with clay. In other words, the communists are communists, and the democracy is democracy. We don't mix with each other. We live in the same world together, but they have their own thing, just like China and North Korea and many of these communist nations. But yet the democracy nations, we kind of have our own thing going on over here too, where we have elections and and the Muslims is also considered a communist nation, because the Muslims are looking for the Mahdi, which is going to be the ruler of the whole earth. And right now, it's what ISIS is doing. They're trying to rid the world of anything that's an infidel. And if you're not a Muslim, then you're considered an infidel, and an infidel should die. And so basically they're technically a communist group because they believe in one way, and if you don't fit their way, then they're going to get rid of you. So they're basically communists also. And it says in verse 44, now this has to go back to deal with the kingdom right here. This is talking about the 1,000-year reign of Christ, or the millennial kingdom. And in the days of these kings, in other words, the kings that had, remember the feet was made up of iron and clay, but they had 10 toes. And the 10 toes represents the 10 kings. And remember we saw how the 10 toes also represents the 10 horns. It's represented in chapter number 7. And then in Revelation 17, Revelation 13, we see the 10 horns, which is these 10 toes. It says, in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up his kingdom, which shall never be destroyed. In other words, once this kingdom comes, there'll be no more after it. This is going to be the final kingdom. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. So once Jesus comes, and he sets his millennial kingdom up, then all other previous kingdoms is going to be done away with. There's not going to be the communists and the democracies and everything. It's going to be Jesus Christ and him ruling and reigning from the throne of David. And he's going to rule the entire earth. Everybody's going to answer to him. He's going to be the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. For as much as you saw it, that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that's talking about Jesus, that it break in pieces the iron and the brass and the clay and the silver and the gold. The great God hath made known to King what shall come to pass hereafter, and the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof is sure. So that stone cut out without hands is Jesus coming. He's the rock of audience unto the Jews. He's the chief cornerstone, let's say it that way. That when he comes and he sets up his kingdom, it's going to be an everlasting kingdom. Now Satan's going to make his revolt. Remember, after the 1,000 years was finished, Satan is loosened out of the prison. And he goes out and he sees the four corners of the earth, north, south, east, and west. He goes out and he tries to get a remnant of people that will follow after him. And the Bible said there in chapter 20 that it was as the sand of the sea. So that's quite a few people that's going to follow after him. And he's going to make his attack against the holy city, or the beloved city, it said. That is Jerusalem. Where's the throne of David? In Jerusalem. He's going to reign on that throne. So Satan's going to make an attack. Gog and Magog, it called it. Now, there's two different Gog and Magogs. We know the Gog and Magog of Ezekiel 38 and 39 is one Gog and Magog. Now, the Gog and Magog of Revelation 20 is another Gog and Magog. There's two different ones, and the reason I say that, there's differences in both of them. When they come, brother? The Sunni Muslims. Satan's followers. It talks about in 39, it talks about how God comes, and when Jesus comes down to the earth, then when you get into chapter 40 through 47, that's talking about millennial reign. That's the reason I say in 39 it starts talking about how Jesus has come and how he saves them, and how the people begin to, so they're looking to Jesus then, because he comes and he saves them. But in the Gog and Magog of chapter number 20, there's fire comes down from heaven that devours them. And if you look at 2 Peter chapter number 2, it talks about how there'll be, the earth will be destroyed by fervent heat. And it talks about how it just as it's destroyed the first time by water, this time by fire. And it's talking about that in Peter. Then it's basically talking about how God is going to destroy the earth at that time. Now, how he's going to reserve the people during that time, I don't know. I mean, it's just like when not Daniel, but Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was in the fiery furnace. They walked around in there like nothing was even going on. All the things was happening all around them, but the only thing burned up on them was the things that had them bound, the ropes that had them bound burned, but not even a hair on their head was singed. And then when Nebuchadnezzar looked in there, he saw 4 men in that furnace. And one of them was likened to the Son of Man. He was in there walking around with them, protecting them. And I think of it being that way. When God destroys the earth by fire, he's going to destroy it, but we're going to be like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and it won't affect us. We will not be affected by that, just like the fiery furnace didn't affect them. Now, that's the best I can do with what little bit of intelligence God's given me to explain that. Yes, they are. Russia and Iran, which are already in cahoots right now, trying to come saying they're going against ISIS. But it's a funny thing, they don't really hit all the ISIS things. What I've been reading on the news is they're hitting more of the Kurds and stuff like that, because they're trying to go after the leader of Syria. And they're trying to prevent that because he's a Shia Muslim, and that's why. Oh yeah? Really? Really? That's something, isn't it? We're here. We're right here. We're living in the 10 toes time right now. We're living there. So the Lord's coming. You know, I thought for sure last year was it, but it may be this year. I'm looking for him every year. I'm looking for him every day. I mean, I still think he's coming on the Feast of Trumpets, because I think he's fulfilling those Jewish holidays, and I'm thinking he's fulfilling each one of them on its time. But the Bible says no man knows the day or hour, so I'm ready right now at this very moment. He could come right now. That trumpet could blow this very second, and we'd be out of here. So I'm not going to say.
I heard that there are more people living together unmarried in the United States than their marriage.
Now do what, brother?
I heard that there's more people living together unmarried in the United States than there are married.
Yeah, are married. I know it's a sad fact of our nation, the ungodliness that our nation has become. At one time, we lived in one nation under God, and most people reverenced God, whether they believed in God or not. They'd at least reverence the people of God and reverence God. They respected people who went to church. They didn't cuss around them. They would take their hat off and apologize to people. Nowadays, we're the enemy now, and we're the butt of the jokes, and we're the ones that they make fun of and mock and all kinds of things. So the Christians today is not what it was back in the 50s and even the 60s and even early 70s. Well, I guess I didn't get saved to the 90s, and I used to have people that would cuss in break rooms and stuff, and they'd apologize to me. Oh, I didn't see you sitting over there. I'm sorry. I said, well, don't apologize to me. Apologize to him. He's the one you got to be apologizing to. But that don't happen no more. Say whatever now. They don't care where I'm in there or not. I don't where my lights become dim, and they don't see that God's in my life as much as they used to, or whether it's just that time period where they just don't care no more. I think it's the Laodicean church age where we're so lukewarm, people really don't see the hotness of God no more. They see a lukewarm Christian that half-heartedly serves him. And I hate to say it, but I'm probably one of those, because my light's not as bright as it used to be, and I can see it, and I can look back and think, wow, I used to be like this. Now I ain't like it no more. I backslid, basically, because I'm not where I was. And I'm sure we all could probably look through our lives and probably see something similar. So we see that there's going to be a kingdom, as we said, and that's that 1,000-year reign of Christ. Now let's look over at Daniel chapter number 7, and it kind of talks about it again right here. It kind of brings a little bit more clarity to it. In Daniel chapter number 7, and it's more in depth on the dream. The first dream was about the image and the head of gold and the arms and a chest of silver and the waist of brass, and then the legs of iron, representing the east and the west. The two legs represents the east and west of the Roman Empire, and then the 10 toes represents the world we live in today. Part of the Roman Empire still in that, being the iron. And also we see it as communism and democracy together. The Roman Empire still got influence in it because it's still made of iron, the same as the legs. So here's another vision that's given unto Daniel now. And Daniel's wanting to know more about what all that dream was about. So he's sought the Lord, and the Lord's given him more insight into it. In the first year of Belshazzar, the king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and vision of his head upon his bed Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matter. So Daniel's having this dream. Daniel spoke and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven strove upon the great sea. And four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from the other. In other words, each one of these are different beasts. They're not the same. They're all different in their makeup. The first was likened to a lion, and he had eagle's wings. And behold, I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man. And a man's heart was given unto it. And behold, another beast, a second, like unto a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, and between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. And this I beheld, and lo, another like unto a leopard, which had upon his back 4 wings as a fowl, and the beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given unto it. And I saw in the night vision, and behold, the 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth, and devoured and brake in pieces, and stomped the residue with the feet of it, and it was worse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Now, what we just read there is the same thing we just read there in chapter number 2. It's talking about the same thing. The lion was the Babylonian Empire, the bear was the Medo-Persian Empire, the leopard was the Grecian Empire, and then the 4th beast, which is dreadful and terrible, is the Roman Empire, which is a terrible, terrible empire because they had no mercy on people. They crucified the Lord of glory. They had no mercy on people, and then it had 10 horns, and the 10 horns represents the 10 kingdoms that is of today. I considered the horns. So he's thinking, well, what's these horns right here? I know they have something to do with the toes, but what are they? And behold, there come up among them another little horn. Now the little horn, we've done this study already. That is the Antichrist coming up out of the 10 horns. The 10 horns, and another came up, which little horn, and he is the Antichrist, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots, and behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, a mouth speaking great things. Remember, he blasphemes God and declares himself to be God upon the earth. And I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hairs of his head were like pure wool, and the throne was like a fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. Now this is talking about Jesus here. Now the reason we say it's Jesus right here is because when you look at Revelation chapter number 1, John saw a vision of Jesus in his glorified state, and it's very similar. I may even go around and read it here in just a second. Verse 10, a fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands and thousands ministered to him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him, and judgment was set, and the books were opened. And this is talking about the 1,000-year reign of Christ, right? Or, I mean, not 1,000-year reign, but this judgment here is the great white throne judgment. And I beheld them because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake, and I beheld even till the beast was slain, and the body destroyed, and given to the burning flame. As concerning the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. In other words, all these kingdoms were done away with, but yet they're preserved for a season and a time. The season and time is the time we're living in right now, the end time days. And they're going to rise back up, because remember, the beast in chapter number 13 of Revelation had these characteristics. He had a head of his lion, and a bear, had feet of a bear, and there's different parts of it is all made up in that terrible beast that's part of Revelation 13, which the Antichrist controls. And it came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him before him, and there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom. This is talking about the 1,000-year reign right here. And it was given unto him dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. And his dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which should not be destroyed. So it's talking about the 1,000-year reign there, where he rules and he reigns forever and ever. Then he goes in here for the interpretation. I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit in the midst of my body, and the vision in my head troubled. And I came near unto one of them that stood by, and asked him, what truth is all this? And so he told me, and made known the interpretation of these things. These great beasts, which are four kings, or four kingdoms, basically, which shall rise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. So the saints of the Most High, which is us, what did it say there in chapter 20? That we're kings and priests unto him. And if you look at Revelation 1 and Revelation 5, it says the same thing, that we're kings and priests. We shall possess this kingdom. Then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceedingly dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass, which devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. And the 10 horns which were upon his heads, and the other which came up from before 3 fell, even of that horn which had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellow. And that's talking about the Antichrist there. I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them. And that's what he's going to do during the tribulation period. He's going to make war against the Jews and against Christians. Anybody that has anything associated with God, he's going to come against them, and he's going to prevail against them. In other words, he's going to win that battle at time. He's going to behead a lot, because that's what it talks about there in chapter 20. It talks about those who was beheaded for the testimony of Jesus. Until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to him and the saints of the Most High, and the time came for the saints to possess the kingdom. So there's going to be a time when the saints is going to possess his kingdom. The Jews is going to possess the land, and we're going to possess the whole world, basically. And he said, the fourth beast shall come as a fourth kingdom upon the earth, and shall diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces. And that's under the Antichrist. And the 10 horns out of the kingdom are the 10 kings that shall arise. Remember, we talked about chapter 17, how the 10 horns didn't have crowns. Chapter 13, they did. Once they got their kingdoms, they gave the power of their kingdom unto the Antichrist to rule the whole world with. And he shall be diverse from the first, and shall subdue 3 kings. He shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. In other words, we're going to take us back to Sharia law, if it is a Muslim Mahdi that this is talking about, being the Antichrist. He's going to try to take us back to Sharia law and make the whole world bow down to Sharia law, every country. And they shall be given into his hand until the time and times and dividing of times. Now, that, remember, we talked about that, how it represents 3.5 years, or the 42 months it talks about in Revelation, or the time dividing of time. That's a year, 2 years, and then a half year. And judgment shall sit, and it shall take away his dominion, and consume and destroy it unto the end. And the kingdoms and dominions and the greatness of the kingdom shall the whole earth, or the whole heaven, shall be given to the people of the saints and the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. In other words, once Jesus comes and sets up the millennial kingdom, all the rest will be done away with, and they'll come and serve and obey him. It says in Psalm chapter 2, he will rule with a rod of iron. Hereunto is the end of the matter, as far as Daniel, my cogitations must trouble me, but my contemporance change in me, but I kept the matter in my heart. In other words, his countenance changed in him, and it just made him sick because of all the things that he saw in this vision. So these are just some of the things it's talking about the 1,000-year reign. Once it's set up, it's going to be an everlasting kingdom, and there'll be no more kingdoms after that. Now it talks about, and I'm not going to get into it because I'm out of time right now, I need to end, but we'll look at Zechariah next week, and we'll look at some scripture there in Matthew, and we'll look at some in Luke, we'll be in Isaiah. A lot of different scripture has to do with the 1,000-year reign of Christ, things that's going to take place. When he comes back at the Battle of Armageddon, it says that his foot will come down and it will touch the earth, and when it does, it's causes a great earthquake. And I believe it's the earthquake that causes the island, the disappear and the mountains will fall down flat. I believe it's going to be an earthquake. It's going to cause the whole earth to shake. But when he touches it, when his foot touches there, and it's going to cause a great valley to be made there where all the dead are, and they're going to put all the dead in that cavern. Like when the earth breaks apart, a lot of times it'll shake and break apart, and it'll cause a great, like, gulf fix, I guess you call it, or whatever, and that's where a lot of the dead's going to be placed in there, and God will close the ground up once all is done. And it'll be a burial place for all the dead. That's going to happen. But then he's going to set up his millennial kingdom, and it talks about that in Ezekiel 40 through 47. It talks about a new temple being built, a millennial temple. Now, I know there's a temple built during the tribulation period, and the Antichrist will go into that temple, into the Holy of Holies, and declare himself God, according to 2 Thessalonians chapter number 2. But there's going to be another temple that's going to be built according to Ezekiel 40 through 47, and the walls of the temple is going to be a mile high and a mile long. So it's going to be a huge temple that's going to be built for Jesus to rule and reign in. And he's going to, like I say, he's going to rule on the throne of David, and he's going to be a king that's going to not tolerate sin anymore. He's going to rule with a rod of iron. When sin is committed, he's going to be brought immediately to him. It's not going to be a day of grace like we live in today. It's going to be a different kingdom. It's going to be, and that's what's going to be preached through the tribulation period, is the gospel of the kingdom. Remember, I told you there's a difference between the gospel of grace and the gospel of the kingdom. It's two different things. Just like in the Old Testament, it was the gospel of the law. The law was taught, and the law was given, and they was to follow the law. They was to do everything they could in the law, and that's why the sacrifices, the animal sacrifices was given. They had to do those things. It wasn't the day of grace that we live in today. But during the millennial kingdom, there's going to be a different gospel then too. It's going to be the gospel of the kingdom, being ruled by Jesus Christ himself. And he's going to rule in physical form in a glorified body on the earth. And it says that he will rule with, we'll get into those scriptures next week. We'll see what it says about Jesus ruling on his throne next week. And we'll see how it's different from what we live in today. Today, we live in a gospel of grace and mercy. Thank God for the grace and mercy we live in today, brother.
I was just thinking on the rule about on fire that one time at the end, Satan's loose. Just wondered if all this rule of life.
Yeah, that's why.
Then they're going to keep going.
That's why they're going to reject it.
Again, take over.
That's correct. That's correct. Because they've been under this, but he rules in righteousness. He rules in fairness. I mean, he's not a dictator like what we know as dictators like Hitler or something like that. He's going to be a God of love, because he doesn't change that. He's forever. He's always been, always will be a God of love and a God of mercy and grace. But sin will no longer be tolerated. Like today, we see sin all around us. It's just everywhere. You go places like New York or some of these big cities, sin is so rampant. Even here, the drug abuse. I used to be a drug addict. I know. The drug abuse out here is unbelievable. The alcohol consumption in this area is mind-boggling. You go to the store and just sit there for a little while. Everybody comes up to the cash register, usually got a thing of beer or something. Go by the liquor store. Look how many cars in the parking lot, especially on holidays. My goodness, it's unbelievable. Brother? Yeah, that's it. They say that evil's good and good's evil. We're evil now in the sight of the people of the world because we stand for what's right. We say the homosexuality is wrong. They say, no, it's right. You're wrong. These churches, we need to shut them things down. They're the ones that's wrong. They're trying to stop what we want. We want this to be acceptable in all aspects from all people. But these people are a bunch of haters. They don't want this, so they're always against it. We just need to get rid of these churches, and we need to get rid of these people that go to church because they're a bunch of haters. They hate the homosexual. I don't hate the homosexual. I hate their sin. I think they can be saved just like I got saved. And, all the other sins that's out there, we're against, we could have marijuana legalized if it wasn't for all these churches around here and them, yeah. They want their sin. They want all this stuff that makes their flesh happy. And that's not what God's all about.
They don't consider it sin. If they don't consider it sin, they have to come to that realization.
Yeah, they think it's okay that this is where we're going. We're going this way. Well, what does the Bible say about that? It says that broad is the way to lead to destruction. Many go in thereat. Narrow is the way that leadeth unto life, and few be there that find it. So they're wanting to go on the broad path, and they're wanting everybody else to go on that broad path with us. And it's hard because when you're going on the narrow path, you're going upstream. You're going the opposite of everybody else. So everybody else is saying, you're wrong, you're going the wrong way. Everybody else is going this way. Majority rules. We're all going towards legalizing marijuana. We're all going for the homosexuals to be able to just come out and be out in the open and not have to be criticized or whatever. And all the world's sin. We want that. Here you people are. There's just a few of you, and you're all causing such a mess over here. And they hate the church because of it. Because we stand for the righteousness of God. And we stand against a lot of the stuff that they want. And they hate us for it, too.
You said that I heard the other day, like 7 years, Christian church in the United States is the worst report.
Yeah, I guarantee it.
Last 7 years.
Well, you know, if you look back to the 50s, which I wasn't born in, I look back at movies and TV shows and stuff, and many of you all lived back then. And you know how it was in the 50s. Was sin as rampant as it is now? I'm sure there was a lot of sin, but it's kind of done under the cover, back behind the door. It wasn't out in the open like it is now. And the progression of sin in the 60s, you know, free love and all the stuff, the drugs and all the flower children, all that stuff, and everything that happened in the 60s. And then the 70s, it just kind of got a little worse, and, you know, it kind of got brought back into suggestion just a little bit in the 80s, kind of, sort of, but not really. And it's just kind of just kept getting. And today, here in the 2000 realm, I don't know what you call it, the millennial or whatever that they want to call it. Today, it's in the open. Come out of the closet. Come out here and parade down the streets. I'm gay and I'm proud, and walk down the street and just all this stuff right in everybody's face. Don't hide it no more. Come out with it. And that's where we're at. This is, you know, I'm using homosexuality as my example, but there's other sin too that it's all just out in the open. And they want drugs out in the open. Many of our states, Colorado and Washington State, legalize marijuana. I mean, go get stoned all you want out there. If you want to move out there, you can get stoned all you want.
There's people in Tennessee pushing to get passed.
They're trying to get passed here too. They're trying to bring it in everywhere. They first bring it in, try to get it in as medical marijuana, and then they try to get it in as recreational marijuana. So, but being a marijuana person who used to use marijuana, I think it's safer than alcohol myself because I've done them both. But still, both of them's wrong in the sight of God, so they're both wrong. I think they ought to ban alcohol too. It all ought to be considered sin, and because look how many people die because of drinking. Families destroyed because a drunk driver hits another person or whatever and kills somebody. And drinking is one of the top reasons for people dying in the United States. And it's just the way it is. You know, it's legal. That don't make it right.
There's so-called Christians that believe drinking is okay.
Yeah, there is.
I got some friends, it's like
I do too.
church.
I do too.
They got the beer in the house, they drink.
Mhm.
I can't change the night.
Yeah.
Mr. Cruz, the innocent church is everything, you know, I don't think he comes in the front door, I think he comes in the back door.
Yes.
Slowly gets his,
Yeah.
you know,
I know I keep hammering on the homosexual, but I can use examples from that. That's in the churches now. Pastors and everything is open homosexuals and stuff, and they preach from the pulpits, you know. And it's okay in our church, you know, and it's just... When you get back to this old book right here will teach you how you're supposed to live and what you're supposed to do. And I tell you, it's just amazing where our we're living in the Laodicean church age right now. Lukewarm, not hot, not cold, and it makes God sick, and he wants to spew you out of his mouth. Huh? That's it. People want to pick and choose just a few things to stand on. Well, my time's gone, and everybody went to come in, so we'll end right here. Father, we thank you so much, Lord, for being with us in Sunday school. Lord, we thank you for all your love and mercy and grace. Lord, let us pray upon each and every person that's here, Lord. I pray your blessings just fill their lives. Lord, let the fullness of your blessings flow out upon each and every one, and we'll give you praise, honor, and glory.